Jake Morrison stood in front of the mirror in his small cabin aboard the diplomatic vessel. He had served in the Earth Space Navy for 12 years, but today would be different from any mission he had ever taken. Today he would stop being human. The message had arrived 3 weeks ago. The Galactic Council wanted to meet with Earth's representative. But there was something strange about the invitation. They only wanted one person. That person had to come alone, and that person could not tell anyone their real identity. Jake's commanding officer, Captain Linda Hayes, had called him to her office that morning. She looked worried. Her face showed the kind of concern that comes when someone knows bad news but has to stay professional. "Jake, we need someone who can blend in," she had said. "Someone who knows alien languages and cultures. Someone who can think fast when things go wrong." Jake had nodded. He understood what she was not saying. Earth suspected this meeting was a trap, or worse, a trial where humans would be judged without being able to defend themselves. "I'll do it," Jake had said without hesitation. Now, 3 weeks later, he was preparing to become someone else entirely. The biosuit lay on his bed, looking like a second skin made of strange material that shifted colors in the light. Earth scientists had spent years developing this technology. It could make a human look like almost any alien species in the galaxy. Jake picked up the suit and began putting it on. The material felt cold at first, then warm as it connected with his skin. Tiny sensors read his body and started to change. His reflection in the mirror began to shift and blur. The transformation took 20 minutes. When it finished, Jake no longer saw a human looking back at him. Instead, he saw a Valaxian. His skin now glowed with a soft blue light. His hands had only 3 fingers each. His eyes were larger and set wider apart on his face. Even his height had changed, making him slightly shorter than before. He practiced moving like a Valaxian. They walked with smooth, flowing steps. They moved their hands in gentle arcs when they talked, their heads tilted to the left when they were listening. Jake had studied these movements for months. Now they had to become natural. The ship's computer spoke in a calm voice. "Approaching Viridian Prime Station. Arrival in 2 hours." Jake took a deep breath. He looked at the data pad that held his false identity. His name was now Solax. He was a low-level trade representative from the Valaxian Collective. His job was to observe and report, nothing more. It was the perfect cover for someone who wanted to stay invisible. He spent the next 2 hours reviewing everything he knew about the Galactic Council. 47 different species belonged to it. Some were friendly to humans. Most were neutral. A few were openly hostile. But lately, even the friendly ones had become distant and cold. Earth's colonies had been having problems. Ships were being turned away from stations where they used to trade freely. Permits that should have been approved were getting rejected. Messages sent to alien governments went unanswered. Something was changing in how the galaxy viewed humanity, and no one on Earth knew why. That was why Jake was here, to find out what was happening before it was too late. The ship docked at Viridian Prime without any trouble. Jake gathered his few belongings and prepared to leave. He checked his reflection one last time. The human inside was completely hidden. Only the Valaxian showed. Walking through the docking tunnel, Jake entered the station proper. Viridian Prime was enormous. It circled a purple gas giant like a giant ring. Millions of beings from across the galaxy lived and worked here. The corridors were filled with creatures of every imaginable shape and size. A group of Cretan warriors passed by, their bronze scales clicking as they walked on 4 legs. A family of small furry beings that Jake did not recognize scurried past, chattering in high-pitched voices. Floating jellyfish-like creatures drifted overhead, their tentacles trailing behind them. Jake followed the signs toward the obsidian chamber. That was where the meeting would take place. Security got tighter as he walked. First, there were simple scanners that checked for weapons, then guards who looked at identification papers. Finally, deep scanners that examined every molecule of a person's body. Jake's heart pounded as he approached the deep scanner. This was the real test. If his biosuit failed here, he would be discovered. They would arrest him. They might kill him. Earth would never know what this meeting was about. He stepped into the scanning field. Blue light washed over him from every direction. The machine hummed and buzzed. Data scrolled across screens that the guards watched carefully. Jake forced himself to breathe normally to show no fear. One of the guards, a tall insectoid creature with 4 arms, studied the screen for what felt like forever. Then it waved one of its claws, signaling Jake to move forward. Trade Representative Solax, "You are cleared to enter," the guard said in the common galactic language. Jake thanked the guard and walked through. His legs felt weak with relief, but he kept his Valaxian composure. He had made it past the first major barrier. The obsidian chamber was beyond a set of massive doors that slid open silently. Jake walked inside and stopped, amazed by what he saw. The room was circular and huge. It had rows of seats arranged in rings, one above the other, all facing the center. The walls were made of black stone that seemed to absorb light. High above, a dome showed the purple gas giant outside, its storm swirling in slow motion. Beings from dozens of species were already taking their seats. Jake found the section marked for Valaxian representatives. His assigned seat was in the outer ring, far from the center. It was perfect. He could see and hear everything, but no one would pay much attention to a minor trade delegate sitting in the back. As more representatives arrived, Jake studied them carefully. He recognized most of the species. The Krathen were easy to spot with their forearms and bronze scales. The Aquilians had feathers and sharp beaks. The Mantari looked like walking crystals that reflected light in rainbow patterns. But it was the mood in the room that worried Jake most. There was tension here. Beings who normally talked and joked with each other sat in silence. Groups that usually mixed stayed separated. Something big was about to happen and everyone knew it. A deep tone rang through the chamber. All conversation stopped. Every being turned to face the center of the room, where a raised platform stood empty. Then Chancellor Vorn entered. The Krathen leader was massive, even for his species. He stood at least 8 feet tall. His bronze scales were polished to a mirror shine. His forearms moved with controlled power as he walked to the platform. His face was hard and showed no emotion. "This session of the Galactic Council is now in order," Vorn said. His voice was amplified throughout the chamber, reaching every seat. "We are here to discuss a matter of critical importance to the future of our civilization." Jake leaned forward slightly, his Valaxian body tense with anticipation. "For too long, we have avoided addressing a growing threat," Vorn continued. "We have made excuses. We have hoped that time would solve the problem. We have been patient when we should have been firm." The Chancellor paused, letting his words sink in. Jake could feel the agreement rippling through the crowd. Whatever Vorn was about to say, most of the beings here already supported it. "Today we will finally address the human problem," Vorn announced. Jake felt as if someone had punched him in the stomach. The human problem. They were talking about his species. About his people. About Earth. "Over the past century, humanity has expanded into space at an alarming rate," Vorn said. "They have ignored our customs. They have violated our laws. They have threatened the peace that we have maintained for thousands of years." Around the chamber, heads nodded. Alien voices murmured in agreement. Jake saw representatives from dozens of species showing support for what the Chancellor was saying. "This meeting has one purpose," Vorn declared. "To decide what we will do about the humans. To determine how we will protect our civilization from their aggression. To ensure that our children inherit a galaxy that is safe and stable." The chamber erupted in applause. Beings of all types showed their approval. Some clapped. Some stamped their feet. Some made noises that were considered signs of agreement in their cultures. Jake sat frozen in his seat, his mind racing. He had come here expecting tension. He had expected complaints and arguments. But this was worse. This was not a diplomatic meeting. This was a trial. And humanity was not here to defend itself. He was surrounded by aliens who wanted his species dead. And none of them knew that a human sat among them, listening to every word. Chancellor Vorn raised his forearms for silence. The applause died down slowly, but the energy in the room remained high. Jake could feel the anger and fear directed at his species. It was like a physical force pressing down on him. "We will proceed with order and dignity," Vorn said. "Each species that wishes to present evidence against humanity will have their chance to speak. We will hear all grievances. Then we will vote on how to proceed." A crystal being near the front stood up. Jake recognized the species as Mantari. They were known throughout the galaxy as careful record keepers and merchants. The Mantari's body caught the light and threw rainbow patterns across the dark walls. "Chancellor, I am Ambassador Kellix of the Mantari Collective," the being said. His voice was high and musical like wind chimes. "I speak first because my people have suffered greatly from human expansion." Kellix activated a holographic display that appeared in the center of the chamber. Images and data filled the air, visible to everyone. Jake saw star charts, shipping routes, and what looked like financial records. 3 years ago, human ships began entering the outer reaches, Kellic said. This is territory that the Mantari Collective has controlled for 6 centuries. We have mining operations on 12 asteroids in that region. The resources there belong to us by ancient right. The hologram showed human vessels moving through space, approaching asteroids. Jake recognized the ships. They were standard mining craft, nothing military or aggressive. The humans claimed these asteroids were unoccupied, Kellic continued. They said their scans showed no one owned them. But this is a lie. Our claim is registered in the central database. The humans simply chose to ignore it. Jake wanted to shout that this was not true. Earth survey teams always checked the database before claiming any territory. If the Mantari registration existed, human ships would have seen it. But he stayed silent, his Valaxian disguise hiding his anger. The humans took 8 of our asteroids, Kellic said. They built their facilities on them. They extracted resources that belonged to us. When we protested, they offered to pay us, as if our ancient rights could be bought with credits. Several aliens in the chamber made sounds of disapproval. The idea of buying rights that should be respected was clearly offensive to many species. The Mantari Collective demands justice, Kellic finished. The humans must leave the outer reaches. They must pay for what they have stolen, and they must be prevented from doing this to any other species. Kellic sat down to more applause. Chancellor Vorn nodded and called on the next speaker. A bird-like creature stood up. She was tall and covered in brilliant red and gold feathers. Her beak was sharp and curved. Jake knew this was an Aquilian, one of the prouder species in the galaxy. I am Representative Thura of the Aquilian Empire, she said. Her voice was harsh like a hawk's cry. I will tell you how humans destroyed 3 of our sacred breeding worlds. The hologram changed to show 3 planets. They were beautiful, with blue oceans and green continents. Jake had never seen these worlds before, but they looked peaceful and empty of civilization. For 10,000 years my people have used these worlds, Thura said. Every generation we return to lay our eggs in the sacred grounds. Our ancestors are buried there. Our children are born there. These places are holy to us. She paused, her feathers rising in agitation. Then the humans came. They surveyed the planets and declared them empty. They saw no cities, so they assumed no one cared about these worlds. They were wrong. The hologram now showed human colony ships landing, settlements being built, farms spreading across the land. Jake felt a sinking feeling in his stomach. This must have been a terrible misunderstanding. We told the humans these worlds were sacred, Thura continued. We explained that we do not build permanent structures because we believe the land should remain natural. The humans said they were sorry, but they did not leave. Her voice grew louder with each word. They said that because we did not register the planets with the Galactic Council, they had legal right to colonize them. They valued their laws more than our traditions. They cared more about profit than our sacred duties. The chamber filled with angry muttering. Jake could see that many species sympathized with the Aquilians. The idea that humans would ignore sacred traditions seemed to confirm every bad thing they believed. 3,000 human families now live on our breeding worlds, Thura said bitterly. Our children cannot return home. Our ancestors are disturbed, all because humans think their expansion is more important than our souls. She sat down heavily. The applause that followed was louder than before. Jake closed his eyes briefly, trying to think. Both of these accusations had truth in them, but they were missing context. If only he could explain Earth's side of the story. More speakers rose. A diplomat from the Chiron hive talked about how human traders had disrupted traditional markets. Their prices were too low, he said. They sold goods so cheaply that honest merchants could not compete. Within 2 years, 17 Chiron trading houses had gone bankrupt. A representative from the Dravian clans described how human explorers had entered a restricted zone. The area was marked as dangerous because of unstable energy fields, but the humans went in anyway, claiming they had the right to explore any unclaimed space. 3 human ships were lost. The Dravians had tried to warn them, but the humans did not listen. On and on the accusations came. Each species had a story. Each story painted humans as arrogant, aggressive, or stupid. Sometimes all 3. Then a Valaxian stood up. Jake tensed, recognizing Commander Essex. He was a high-ranking member of Jake's supposed species. His blue glow was brighter than Jake's, showing his status. I speak for the Valaxian Collective, Eshik said. His voice was smooth and controlled, the way important Valaxians always spoke. Our complaint is about economics and honor. The hologram showed trade statistics. Numbers scrolled past showing import and export data from dozens of stations. Human merchants entered the core markets 5 years ago. Eshik explained. At first we welcomed them. Competition is healthy. Trade benefits all. But the humans did not compete fairly. Jake leaned forward, wondering what this was about. Earth's traders had always followed the rules as far as he knew. The humans flooded our markets with cheap goods. Eshik continued. Their manufacturing is faster than ours. Their ships are more efficient. They can sell products for half the price that Valaxian merchants charge. This seems like good business, yes? He paused for effect. But it is not. The human goods do not meet our quality standards. They break quickly. They are made with inferior materials. Yet customers buy them because they are cheap. And when these products fail, who do the customers blame? They blame all merchants. They lose trust in trade itself. Eshik's glow flickered with emotion. 20% of Valaxian trading companies have closed in the past 5 years. Thousands of families have lost their income, all because humans value quantity over quality. They care only about profit, not reputation or honor. The chamber responded with understanding. Many species prided themselves on craftsmanship and quality. The idea that humans were destroying these values with cheap products angered them. Jake wanted to argue. Human goods were not inferior. They were different. Earth had developed efficient manufacturing that made products affordable for everyone, not just the wealthy. But here in this room, that efficiency was being called a crime. More species spoke. The pattern was always the same. Humans were too fast, too aggressive, too different. They did not respect traditions. They did not follow the unwritten rules that everyone else understood. They were disrupting a system that had worked for thousands of years. A small furred creature named Plix talked about cultural insensitivity. Humans had visited his homeworld and taken pictures of sacred ceremonies. When asked to stop, they said they were just documenting interesting cultures. They did not understand that some things should not be shared with outsiders. A floating, gas-based being named Zephalon complained about environmental damage. Human terraforming projects on 2 worlds had released chemicals into space. These chemicals had drifted into Zephalon breeding clouds, killing hundreds of their young. The humans apologized and paid compensation, but the dead could not be brought back. Every story added to the picture being painted. Humans were dangerous. Humans were careless. Humans could not be trusted to exist alongside other civilizations. Jake noticed something important as he listened. Not a single speaker mentioned humans starting a war. No one accused Earth of military aggression or territorial conquest in the traditional sense. All the complaints were about economics, culture, and accidents. But the way the speakers told their stories, these things sounded just as bad as war. Maybe worse, because war everyone understood. This was something different. This was one species changing everything simply by existing. Chancellor Vorn called for a break after 3 hours of testimony. Beings stood and stretched. Some left to use facilities or get food. Others stayed in their seats talking quietly with neighbors. Jake remained sitting, his mind spinning. He needed to process everything he had heard. More importantly, he needed to figure out what to do with this information. A Valaxian diplomat sitting near him leaned over. Quite damning, is it not? The alien said. Jake nodded, playing his role. The evidence seems clear. I knew humans were trouble. The diplomat, continued. Chancellor Vorn stood at the center of the chamber, his 4 arms clasped behind his back. The holographic display changed to show a detailed plan with 3 distinct sections. Jake stared at it, his mouth dry with fear. The Security Directorate has developed a comprehensive solution, Vorn began. We cannot allow humanity to continue disrupting galactic civilization. But we also wish to avoid open warfare, which would destabilize trade and damage innocent populations. That sounded reasonable at first, but Jake knew better. They did not want to avoid war because it was wrong. They wanted to avoid it because it would cost them money. Therefore, we propose a 3-phase approach, Vorn continued. Each phase is designed to contain humanity without firing a single shot. Each phase can be reversed if humans demonstrate genuine change. But make no mistake, if they resist, we are prepared to use force. The first section of the holographic plan lit up. Jake read the title and felt sick. Phase 1. Total economic isolation. Effective immediately upon approval, all human vessels will be banned from Council space, Vorn explained. This includes 70% of known jump gate networks. Human ships attempting to use these gates will be turned back. If they refuse, they will be destroyed. Images appeared showing the vast network of jump gates that connected the galaxy. Blue lines showed current human trade routes. As Vorn spoke, those blue lines turned red and began disappearing. All human colonies outside Earth's home system will be placed under embargo, Vorn said. No ships may travel to or from these colonies. No supplies may be delivered. No communications will be permitted except emergency distress signals. Jake thought about the 12 colony worlds humanity had established, places like New Portland, Liberty Station, and Hope's Landing. Together they housed nearly 3 million people. Without regular supply ships from Earth, they would run out of food, medicine, and fuel within months. Human financial accounts held in Council institutions will be frozen, Vorn continued. All assets will remain inaccessible until humanity agrees to our terms. Trade agreements with human entities will be voided. Any species that continues to trade with humans will face sanctions. Ambassador Kellick stood up, his crystal body gleaming. How long do we estimate it will take for this economic pressure to work? Our analysts predict 6 months to a year, Vorn replied. The colonies will suffer first. They will pressure Earth to negotiate. When humans realize they cannot survive alone, they will accept whatever terms we offer. Jake's hands gripped the armrests of his seat so hard his knuckles would have been white if he were still human. They were planning to starve entire colonies. 3 million people would suffer because of political decisions made light years away. What about the colonies' populations? Asked Representative Thura. Surely many innocents will die. Vorn nodded slowly. Regrettable but necessary. The humans should have considered this before antagonizing the Council. Besides, they will have the option to surrender at any time. Any deaths will be their own choice. The casual way he dismissed millions of lives made Jake want to scream. These were not soldiers or politicians. They were families, children, elderly people who had moved to the colonies to start new lives. None of them had done anything to deserve this. The second section of the plan lit up. Phase 2. Military containment. While economic isolation works, we must ensure humans cannot break free through force, Vorn said. Therefore, all human vessels found in Council space will be designated as hostile. The hologram showed human ships, both military and civilian, being targeted by alien weapons. Little red X marks appeared over each ship indicating destruction. Our fleets will establish a blockade around Earth's system, Vorn explained. Any ship attempting to leave will be warned once. If it continues, it will be destroyed. This applies to all vessels, including civilian transports, cargo haulers, and private craft. A Krathan general stood up, his bronze scales gleaming with excitement. The Krathan Empire volunteers 6 battle groups for blockade duty. We will ensure no human escapes. The Aquilian Navy offers 4 carrier wings, Thura added quickly. More species began volunteering their military forces. It seemed everyone wanted a piece of containing humanity. Jake listened in horror as they divided up the blockade positions like they were sharing a meal. There is another concern, Ambassador Kellick said. Our intelligence suggests humans have been developing weapons that violate Council regulations. Specifically, they have been experimenting with planet-based defense systems that could threaten entire fleets. This was news to Jake. Earth had defensive satellites, but nothing that could threaten full military fleets. The accusation was either false or greatly exaggerated. We have no concrete proof, Kellick admitted, but the fact that we do not know what weapons they possess is precisely the problem. We cannot take chances. If humanity attempts to break the blockade, we must respond with overwhelming force. Vorn nodded in agreement. The military phase will continue until humanity surrenders all weapons that could threaten Council security. They will be permitted only defensive armaments suitable for police and internal security. Nothing capable of space combat. Jake understood what this meant. Earth would be disarmed. Even if they survived the economic isolation, they would be helpless. Any future disagreement with the Council would end with Earth having no choice but to submit. The third section illuminated. Phase 3. Historical revision and long-term management. This phase is perhaps the most important, Vorn said. We must ensure that future generations understand the danger humanity posed. We must prevent them from ever being seen as victims or martyrs. The hologram showed databases, history files, and educational materials. Jake watched as human achievements were altered, reduced, or erased entirely. All historical records accessible to Council species will be updated, Vorn explained. Human contributions to galactic society will be minimized. Their technological achievements will be attributed to alien assistance or dismissed as theft of existing designs. This was not just containment. This was cultural destruction. They wanted to erase humanity from history, to make it seem like humans had never mattered at all. Cultural exchange programs involving humans will be terminated, Vorn continued. Human art, music, and literature will be removed from public databases. Species currently studying human culture will be encouraged to focus on other civilizations. A small voice in Jake's head screamed. They were not just planning to cage humanity. They were planning to forget humanity ever existed. Educational materials for young people will include information about the human containment, Vorn said. They will learn that humans were a dangerous species that had to be controlled for everyone's safety. This will ensure future generations do not question our decision. Representative Thura looked uncomfortable for the first time. Is it truly necessary to go this far? Surely containing them is enough without erasing their culture. It is necessary, Vorn replied firmly. If we do not control the narrative, humans will be seen as victims. Sympathetic species might demand their release. Humans might become a rallying point for those who oppose Council authority. We cannot allow that. Jake felt cold rage building inside him. They were not just planning to destroy humanity's future. They wanted to destroy the memory of humanity's past. The hologram shifted to show a timeline. Jake saw dates marked for when each phase would begin. The vote would happen tomorrow morning. If approved, Phase 1 would start immediately. Phase 2 would begin within a week. Phase 3 would roll out over the following months and years. The timeline is aggressive, Vorn acknowledged, but delays give humans time to prepare or escape. Speed is essential. A reptilian creature Jake did not recognize stood up. What if humans refuse to surrender? What if they choose to fight even when facing starvation and military defeat? Vorn was quiet for a moment. Then they will die. We will maintain the blockade and embargo indefinitely. Their colonies will fail. Their population will decline. Eventually, they will either submit or become extinct. Either outcome solves our problem. The chamber was silent as beings processed this. Some looked troubled. Most looked determined. A few looked eager, as if the idea of humanity's extinction was something they welcomed. I want to be clear, Vorn said. We are not monsters. We do not want to commit genocide. If humans cooperate, we will allow them to survive, but they will do so on our terms, in their own space under our supervision. They will never again threaten galactic stability. Jake noticed something during all of this. Not once did anyone suggest actually talking to humans. Not once did anyone propose sending diplomats to Earth to explain the problems and negotiate solutions. The Council had already decided humans were guilty and deserved punishment. Chancellor Vorn continued speaking, but Jake's mind was elsewhere. He was calculating distances and jump routes. He was thinking about how to get this information back to Earth. He was wondering if there was any way to stop what was coming. The session finally ended after 5 hours. Beings stood and began talking in small groups. Jake heard fragments of conversation as aliens discussed the plan. About time someone did something about the humans. My cousin will be happy to hear they're trading. Jake did not sleep that night. He spent hours preparing for what he was about to do. He reviewed every fact, every statistic, every piece of evidence that might help defend humanity. He practiced what he would say, how he would stand, what tone he would use. Most importantly, he modified his biosuit. The suit was designed to maintain a disguise, but Jake needed it to do the opposite. He programmed it to reverse its transformation on his command. The change would be dramatic and impossible to miss. As station dawn approached, Jake dressed in his Valaxian robes one last time. He looked at himself in the mirror and spoke to the reflection. If this works, I save 3 million lives. If it fails, I die and Earth loses its only witness. Either way, at least I tried. The walk to the obsidian chamber felt longer than before. Jake's heart pounded with every step. He passed aliens heading to the same destination, all of them eager to cast their vote against humanity. The chamber was already filling when Jake arrived. He took his seat in the outer ring and waited. Beings talked quietly among themselves. The mood was satisfied, almost celebratory. They believed they were about to solve a major problem. Chancellor Vorn entered precisely on time. His bronze scales gleamed under the chamber's lights as he took his position at the center. "We gather today to vote on Resolution 773, Vorn announced. The containment and management of humanity. Each species will cast their vote. A simple majority is required for passage." Jake listened as Vorn reviewed the 3 phases one more time: the economic isolation, the military blockade, the historical revision. Each phase sounded even more terrible in the morning light. "Before we vote, I will ask one final time," Vorn said. "Does any representative wish to speak against this resolution?" Silence filled the chamber. Jake waited, giving others a chance. Surely someone would object. Surely someone would question if this was the right approach. But no one moved. No one spoke. The species that might have defended humanity either agreed with the plan or were too afraid to stand against the majority. "Very well," Vorn said. "We will proceed with voting. Each species will be called alphabetically. State your position clearly for the record." He began calling names. The first species was the Aquilians. Representative Thura stood. "The Aquilian Empire votes yes," she said firmly. The pattern continued. Each species called, each one voting yes. Some voted with enthusiasm. Others voted with obvious reluctance. But they all voted yes. Jake counted silently. 10 species. 15. 20. The resolution was going to pass easily. 25. 30. The outcome was certain now. Then Vorn called the Valaxian Collective. Commander Essex stood, his blue glow bright and steady. "The Valaxian Collective votes yes on Resolution 773. Human containment and objection." The word came from Jake, his voice, amplified by the chamber's systems, cut through the formal proceeding like a knife. Every being in the room turned to look at the low-ranking delegate who had dared to interrupt. Essex's glow flickered with shock and anger. Who dares interrupt the official vote? Chancellor Vorn's 4 eyes locked onto Jake. "Identify yourself immediately." Jake stood slowly. His hands moved to the controls hidden in his robes. This was the moment. "Tell going back now. My name is Jake Morrison," he said, "and I think you all need to understand what you are really voting for." His fingers activated the sequence. The biosuit began to reverse its transformation. The blue glow of Valaxian skin faded. The 3-fingered hands reformed into 5-fingered human ones. The altered features melted away to reveal Jake's true face. The chamber erupted in chaos. Aliens shouted in shock and anger. Some jumped from their seats. Others reached for weapons they did not have. Security forces began moving toward Jake, but Chancellor Vorn raised a hand, stopping them. "A human," Vorn said quietly, his voice somehow carrying over the noise. "In the heart of the council. This is an act of espionage and war." "This is an act of desperation," Jake corrected. He spoke loudly, clearly, making sure everyone could hear. "You are about to vote to condemn my entire species. You are planning to kill millions of innocent people through starvation and military force, and you are going to do it without giving us a chance to defend ourselves. You have no right to be here," Ambassador Kellex shouted, his crystal body flashing angry colors. "Your presence is illegal. Your deception proves that humans cannot be trusted. I came in disguise because you did not invite humanity to this meeting." Jake shot back. "You held a secret trial. You made accusations without allowing anyone to respond. You planned genocide without the courtesy of telling us to our faces." He looked around the chamber, meeting as many eyes as he could. "If anyone here is treacherous, it is not me. It is all of you planning murder in secret chambers." Chancellor Vorn's voice was ice-cold. "Guard your words carefully, human. You are one being surrounded by thousands. We could kill you without effort." "Then do it," Jake said. "Kill me right now. Show everyone here what this is really about. Show them that you are so afraid of humans that you will murder an unarmed diplomat standing in your own chamber." Vorn did not give the order. Jake knew he would not. Killing him now would prove Jake's point. It would show that the council was driven by fear and violence, not justice and law. "You claim innocence," Representative Thura said, "but we have heard 2 days of testimony about human crimes. How do you answer those accusations?" "I will answer them," Jake said. "Every single one. But first, I want you all to understand something. You have been told lies and half-truths. You have been shown evidence without context. You have been manipulated into believing that humans are monsters who must be destroyed." He pulled up his own holographic display. Using his suit's remaining technology, data appeared in the air. visible to everyone in the chamber. Ambassador Kellex claims humans stole Mantari asteroids in the outer reaches, Jake said. Here are Earth survey records for that region. We checked the Council database before claiming any territory. The Mantari registration did not exist in the database at that time. The hologram showed the database query, time-stamped and verified. The Mantari asteroids were listed as unclaimed when humans arrived. It was there, Kellex protested. Our records go back 6 centuries. Your records exist, Jake agreed. But they were not in the Council database. That is not our fault. We followed proper procedures. If there was a mistake, it was in your registration, not our survey. He changed the display. Representative Thora says humans destroyed sacred Aquilian breeding worlds. Here are the coordinates of those worlds. Now look at the Council's database of registered sacred sites. The list appeared. Thousands of worlds were marked as sacred to various species, but the 3 worlds humans had colonized were not on the list. We did not know these worlds were sacred, Jake said. You never told the Council. You never registered them. We saw empty planets and followed the law by settling them. When you finally told us they were important, we offered to leave. But you demanded we abandon our homes immediately, without compensation or time to relocate. That is not reasonable. Thora's feathers flattened. She looked uncomfortable but said nothing. Jake continued through the accusations one by one. The cheap Valaxian goods were not inferior products. They were efficiently manufactured items that made technology affordable for everyone, not just the wealthy. Earth's trade practices were aggressive but legal. The cultural insensitivity with the small-furred species was a misunderstanding. Humans thought they were documenting public ceremonies, not knowing they were sacred and private. When corrected, humans stopped and apologized. The pictures were deleted. The environmental damage from terraforming was a tragic accident. Earth scientists did not know about the Zephalon breeding clouds because they were invisible to human sensors. When the mistake was discovered, humans paid full compensation and changed their terraforming methods to prevent future problems. Every accusation you have made contains some truth, Jake said. But the truth is not what you have been told. These are not crimes. These are misunderstandings between species that do not fully understand each other yet. Misunderstandings that cost lives and livelihoods, Commander Essex said. His blue glow pulsed with anger. Yes, Jake agreed, and we take responsibility for that. But tell me, Commander, have you ever made a mistake? Has the Valaxian Collective never misunderstood another species? Have your traders never accidentally offended someone or broken an unknown custom? Essex did not answer. The difference is that when other species make mistakes, you call it an accident, Jake continued. When humans make mistakes, you call it aggression. You judge us by standards you do not apply to yourselves. He pulled up more data. You claim humans are violent and dangerous. Here are the actual conflict statistics for the past 10 years. Humans have been involved in 7 armed conflicts. 6 were defensive actions after we were attacked. 1 was a genuine mistake that we apologized for and paid for. The numbers appeared for all to see. Compare that to the Krathens' 32 conflicts, the Mantari's 18 territorial disputes, the Dravians' 23 border wars. Every species in this room has a more violent record than humanity. Yet you call us the threat. Chancellor Vorn's expression did not change, but Jake saw something flicker in his eyes. Doubt, perhaps, or calculation. Your economic data is accurate, Vorn admitted, but it does not address the fundamental problem. Chancellor Vorn raised his forearms for silence. The chamber gradually quieted, though excited conversations continued in whispers throughout the room. Jake remained standing, waiting to see what would happen next. This is unprecedented, Vorn said. His voice was controlled, but Jake could hear the uncertainty beneath it. A human spy has infiltrated our highest council. He has listened to classified deliberations. He has violated every security protocol we have. And yet he stands here unarmed and alone, said a voice from the upper tiers. Jake looked up to see a being he had not heard speak before. It was a Naxian, a species known for their philosophical approach to problems. If humans were truly as aggressive as we claim, would this one reveal himself? Or would he sabotage our vote through violence and chaos? The question hung in the air. Jake had not thought of it that way, but the Naxian was right. If humans were the monsters everyone claimed, Jake would have acted very differently. He reveals himself because he was caught, Ambassador Kellex argued. He had no choice. I caught myself, Jake corrected. Your security never detected me. I could have remained hidden, gathered intelligence, and returned to Earth without you ever knowing I was here. I chose to reveal myself because I believe transparency is better than deception. Chancellor Vorn studied Jake for a long moment. Why should we not simply execute you and continue with our vote? Because executing me proves my point, Jake said calmly. It proves you are driven by fear, not justice. It proves you would rather kill than talk. And it proves that everything I have said about your secret trial was correct. The chamber filled with uncomfortable murmuring. Many beings shifted in their seats. Jake had put Vorn in an impossible position. Killing Jake would make him a martyr. Letting him go would make the council look weak. Representative Thura stood. Chancellor, may I speak? Vorn nodded, looking relieved to have someone else take the floor. I have been thinking about what the humans said, Thura began. Her feathers were no longer raised in anger. My people did not register our sacred worlds with the council because we considered it obvious that unbuilt land should remain unbuilt. But to humans, empty land means opportunity. This is a cultural difference, not a crime. She looked at Jake. I still believe humans should have consulted with us before settling those worlds, but perhaps we should have made our customs clearer. Perhaps both sides made mistakes. That is weakness talking, a Krathan general growled from his seat. Humans do not deserve understanding. They deserve containment. And what happens when they break free? The Naxian philosopher asked. The human is correct. If we cage them, they will eventually escape, and they will remember how we treated them. The chamber divided into arguing groups. Some insisted the vote should continue as planned. Others wanted to postpone and reconsider. A few suggested opening direct negotiations with Earth. Jake watched it all, his heart pounding. He had succeeded in creating chaos, but that was not enough. He needed to turn this chaos into something productive. May I make a proposal? Jake asked loudly. The arguments died down. Chancellor Vorn looked at him with suspicious eyes. You are in no position to make proposals, human. Then what do I have to lose by trying? Jake replied. If you are going to execute me anyway, at least hear what I have to say first. Vorn considered this. Finally, he nodded. Speak, but be brief. Jake took a breath, organizing his thoughts. You claim that humans cause problems through rapid expansion and poor communication. I agree. We do expand quickly. We do not always understand alien customs. We make mistakes. He looked around the chamber. But the solution is not containment. The solution is cooperation. Create a joint commission with human representatives. Establish clear protocols for expansion that all species must follow, not just humans. Develop better communication systems so misunderstandings can be resolved before they become conflicts. We already have protocols, Ambassador Kellick said. Humans ignore them. Because they are unclear, Jake countered. They rely on unwritten customs and assumptions that humans do not share. Make the rules explicit. Make them fair. Make them apply equally to everyone. Humans will follow clear rules. Commander Eshix's blue glow brightened. That is not unreasonable. If the rules were more clear, perhaps many conflicts could be avoided. It is still too trusting, the Krathan general said. What guarantee do we have that humans will follow any rules at all? The same guarantee any species gives, Jake replied. Our word and our actions. Judge us by what we do, not by what you fear we might do. The Naxian philosopher stood. I propose we table the containment resolution. Instead, let us vote on whether to establish a joint commission as the human suggests. We can always return to containment later if cooperation fails. A waste of time, the Krathan general grumbled. Is it? The Naxian asked. If the commission works, we solve the problem without creating an enemy. If it fails, we lose perhaps a year before implementing containment. That seems a reasonable risk. More voices joined the discussion. The mood in the chamber was shifting. Not everyone was convinced, but enough beings saw the logic in trying cooperation before resorting to force. Chancellor Vorn called for order again. We will take a recess to consider these developments. When we return, we will vote on 2 resolutions. First, the original containment proposal. Second, the humans' alternative of a joint commission. Each representative should consult with their home governments before voting. The session broke up. Beings filed out of the chamber talking intensely. Jake remained standing, unsure what to do. Guards approached him, weapons ready but not pointed. You will come with us, one guard said. Jake followed without resistance. They took him to a secured room with transparent walls. He could see out, but no one could enter without authorization. A holding cell, essentially, but more comfortable than a prison. Hours passed. Jake sat on the single chair in the room and waited. He had done everything he could. The rest was up to the Council and ultimately, up to Earth's leadership. Through the transparent walls, Jake saw beings passing by. Some stared at him with open hostility. Others looked curious. A few seemed thoughtful, as if seeing an actual human had changed how they viewed his species. A Valaxian diplomat approached the wall. It was Kira, a young female who had been sitting near Jake during the sessions. She placed her hand against the transparent barrier. "That was very brave," she said. Her glow pulsed gently, a sign of respect. Or very foolish. Perhaps both. Probably both, Jake agreed with a tired smile. "I want you to know that some of us never believe the worst about humans," Kira said. "But fear is powerful. It makes people believe things they know are not true." "I understand," Jake said. "Humans feel fear too. We make the same mistakes." Kira's glow brightened slightly. "That is what many beings forget. Humans are not so different from the rest of us. You just arrived recently, so everything feels more dramatic." She left after a few more words of encouragement. Jake appreciated the kindness even from someone who was supposed to see him as an enemy. Night cycle came. Jake tried to rest but could not sleep. His mind kept replaying everything that had happened. Had he said the right things? Could he have argued better? What would Earth think when they learned what he had done? The next morning, guards returned to escort Jake back to the obsidian chamber. The room was full again, every seat occupied. The energy was different now. Less certain. More anxious. Chancellor Vorn stood at the center. "We have deliberated throughout the night. We have consulted with our governments. We are ready to vote." Jake was directed to stand in the center of the chamber, visible to everyone. He felt exposed and vulnerable, but he stood straight and met the gazes directed at him. "We will vote first on Resolution 773, the containment of humanity," Vorn announced. "Then, if that fails, we will vote on the alternative proposal for a joint commission." The voting began. Each species was called. Each representative stood and announced their decision. "The Aquilian Empire votes no," Representative Thura said. Her voice was clear and firm. "We choose to try cooperation first." Jake's heart leaped. That was the first no vote. But would there be others? "The Dravian clans vote no. We believe the human makes valid points about our own role in these conflicts." Another no vote. Jake tried not to show hope, but it was building inside him. The voting continued. Some species still voted yes, including the Krathen and several of their close allies. But more voted no than Jake had dared to dream. Species that had seemed certain to support containment were now choosing to give cooperation a chance. When the counting finished, Chancellor Vorn announced the results. Resolution 773 fails by a vote of 26 to 21. The containment of humanity will not proceed. Relief washed over Jake so powerfully that his knees felt weak. He had done it. Against all odds, he had stopped the resolution, but Vorn was not finished. "We will now vote on the alternative proposal. The establishment of a joint commission including human representatives to develop new protocols for expansion, trade, and conflict resolution." This vote went faster. Species that had voted no on containment mostly voted yes on the commission. Even some that had supported containment switched, recognizing that some action need. 5 years had passed since the failed containment vote. Jake Morrison walked through the corridors of Viridian Prime Station, amazed at how much had changed. Where once aliens had stared at him with suspicion or fear, now they nodded in greeting. Some even smiled. If their species had facial expressions that showed happiness, the Joint Commission had grown from a small group meeting in borrowed rooms to a major organization with its own headquarters on the station. 3 full floors were dedicated to commission work. Hundreds of beings from dozens of species worked together daily, solving problems before they became conflicts. Jake was heading to a meeting that would have been impossible 5 years ago. A Krathen trade delegation wanted to negotiate a partnership with human mining companies. The same Krathen who had volunteered their battle groups to blockade Earth now wanted to do business with humans. He entered the conference room to find the delegation already waiting. Leading them was General Corvin, the same Krathen who had argued most strongly for human containment during that terrible session. The general's bronze scales showed his age now, but his forearms still moved with military precision. "Morrison," Corvin said, his voice gruff but not hostile, "you are late. Traffic in the corridors, Jake replied, taking his seat. The station gets more crowded every year. Progress has that effect, Corvin said. Then surprisingly, his mouth twisted in what might have been a smile. I never thought I would say this, but I am glad you stopped us 5 years ago. Jake raised an eyebrow. That is quite a change from wanting to destroy my species. Fear makes fools of even generals, Corvin admitted. The Krathen Empire has profited greatly from human partnerships. Our economy has grown faster in 5 years than in the previous 50. My government sent me here to expand those partnerships, not to fight them. The meeting proceeded smoothly. The Krathen wanted access to human drilling technology. In return, they offered access to asteroid fields in their territory. Both sides would benefit. Both sides would profit. It was exactly the kind of cooperation the Commission was designed to foster. After the meeting, Jake walked to his office. The space was small but comfortable, with windows overlooking one of the station's garden districts. Plants from a dozen worlds grew together in harmony, just like the beings tending them. His assistant, a young Valaxian named Kira, was organizing files when he entered. She had been the diplomat who spoke kindly to him through the transparent wall of his cell 5 years ago. Now she worked directly with him, helping to coordinate commission activities. Commander Hayes sent a message, Kira said, her blue glow brightening with excitement. Earth wants to propose a new initiative at the next full council meeting. Jake took the datapad and read the message. Earth wanted to establish an academy for young beings from all species. They would study together, learn about each other's cultures, and build friendships before they became diplomats or leaders. It was an ambitious idea. What do you think? Jake asked. Kira's glow pulsed thoughtfully. I think it is exactly what we need. The current generation of leaders grew up fearing each other. The next generation should grow up trusting each other. Not everyone will support it, Jake warned. Some species still resist human initiatives on principle. Then we will convince them, Kira said with confidence. We have done it before, she was right. Over the past 5 years, the Commission had won over dozens of skeptical species. The key was patience and consistent good behavior. Every time humans kept a promise or solved a problem fairly, it built trust. Slowly, the galaxy was learning that humans could be partners rather than threats. Jake spent the afternoon reviewing proposals from various working groups. One group wanted to update expansion protocols to account for newly discovered space. Another wanted to establish shared scientific research stations. A third was developing new trade agreements that benefited smaller species who had been left out of previous deals. The work was endless, but satisfying. Every proposal represented progress. Every agreement brought species closer together. It was the opposite of what the Council had almost voted for 5 years ago. As evening cycle approached, Jake prepared to attend a cultural event in one of the station's public halls. A human musician was performing tonight, sharing Earth's music with alien audiences. 5 years ago, such an event would have been impossible. Now it was normal. The hall was packed when Jake arrived. Beings of every description filled the seats. He saw Aquilians next to humans, Mantari next to Valaxians, even a few Krathens scattered throughout the crowd. They had all come to experience human culture. The musician was a young woman named Lisa Chen. She played an instrument called a piano, producing sounds that ranged from soft and gentle to powerful and dramatic. Jake watched the alien faces as they listened. Many showed fascination. Some showed confusion. A few showed what might have been emotion, tears or their equivalent flowing. After the performance, beings approached Lisa with questions. How did the instrument work? What emotions was she trying to express? Could she teach them to make similar music with their own instruments? Jake stood at the back watching it all. This was what he had hoped for when he revealed himself 5 years ago. Not just peace, but genuine connection. Not just tolerance, but curiosity and friendship. A familiar voice spoke beside him. Beautiful, is it not? Jake turned to see Chancellor Vorn. The Krathen leader had aged in 5 years, his bronze scales showing more wear, but his 4 eyes were bright and alert. I did not expect to see you here, Chancellor, Jake said. I make a point of attending cultural events now, Vorn replied. It reminds me of what we almost destroyed through our fear and ignorance. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the crowd. I owe you an apology, Vorn said finally. A personal one, not just the official statement I made 5 years ago. I allowed fear to drive me toward monstrous action. I would have condemned millions of innocents because I was afraid of change. You were not alone in that, Jake said. Most of the council supported containment. But I led them, Vorn said. I presented the plan. I pushed for the vote. The responsibility was mine. He paused. I have spent 5 years trying to make up for what I almost did. I hope it is enough. Jake looked at the old Crathen. He saw genuine regret in those 4 eyes. He saw someone who had learned from his mistakes and worked to fix them. It is enough, Jake said. You changed when you realized you were wrong. That takes more courage than most beings have. Vorn nodded slowly. The galaxy is better with humans in it. I understand that now. Your efficiency pushes others to improve. Your optimism inspires hope. Your stubbornness forces us to question assumptions. We are all stronger because of you. After Vorn left, Jake remained at the event. He talked with beings from various species, answering questions about Earth and human culture. He introduced aliens who had never met before, helping them find common interests. He did the small daily work of building bridges. Late in the evening, Jake returned to his quarters. He was tired but satisfied. He sat at his desk and began writing a report for Admiral Hayes. She wanted regular updates on how the commission was functioning. As he wrote, Jake thought about how much had changed. 5 years ago, he had stood in the obsidian chamber expecting to die. He had revealed himself knowing he might be executed on the spot. But he had gambled that most beings were capable of reason and compassion if given the chance. He had been right. Not everyone had changed their minds. The Crathen general who had wanted containment still had allies who distrusted humans. But enough beings had chosen hope over fear. Enough had chosen cooperation over conflict. The door chimed. Jake looked up to see Kira entering with a tray of food. You missed dinner again, she said, setting the tray on his desk. If I do not feed you, you will work until you collapse. Jake smiled. Thank you, Kira. You take good care of me. Someone has to, she said, her glow dimming to a comfortable level for conversation. Besides, you take care of everyone else. It is only fair. They talked while Jake ate. Kira told him about her family back on the Valaxian homeworld. Her father was a merchant who now did significant business with human traders. He had been skeptical at first, but changed his mind after working with humans for a year. He says humans are the best partners he has ever had, Kira said. They keep their promises. They pay on time. They solve problems instead of creating them. Not all humans are that good, Jake said honestly. We have our share of dishonest people. Every species does, Kira replied. But the majority of humans we have met are honorable. That is what matters. After Kira left, Jake finished his report and prepared for sleep. But before turning off the lights, he looked out his window at the stars beyond the station. Somewhere out there, Earth turned in its orbit. 3 million colonists lived and worked on human settlements scattered across multiple systems. Thousands of ships traveled the trade routes, carrying goods and people between worlds. All of it was possible because one man had stood up and demanded to be heard. Jake did not think of himself as a hero. He had simply done what needed to be done. Any human in his position would have done the same. That was what humans were. People who refused to accept defeat, who fought for what they believed in even against impossible odds. The next morning brought news that changed everything again. Jake was eating breakfast when his communication device Chancellor Vorn studied the reports carefully before speaking. Earth has fulfilled its obligation. The pirate threat has been eliminated within the agreed time frame. However, questions remain about how such a group could form in the first place. Jake had anticipated this concern. The Free Spacers formed because a small percentage of humans disagreed with our cooperative approach. They believed we were surrendering too much autonomy to the Council. We failed to address their grievances before they turned to violence. So you admit humans cannot maintain internal unity, Ambassador Kellick said. This proves the instability we warned about. Every civilization has dissent, Jake countered. The question is how we handle it. Some species suppress disagreement through force. Others ignore it until it explodes. We are learning to address concerns before they become violent. The Free Spacers happened because we were still learning. Representative Thura stood. What steps is Earth taking to prevent future extremist groups? Jake pulled up a holographic display showing Earth's new initiatives. We are establishing dialogue programs for humans who feel the Commission's rules are too restrictive. We are creating forums where concerns can be voiced and addressed. We are teaching young humans about the benefits of cooperation, rather than just telling them to obey. Education and communication, Vorn said thoughtfully. The same methods that have worked for the Commission itself. Exactly, Jake agreed. We cannot force humans to accept cooperation. We have to show them why it is beneficial. That takes time and patience. The council debated for several hours. Some species wanted to impose new restrictions on human activity as punishment for the free spacer incidents. Others argued that Earth had dealt with the problem appropriately and should be trusted. Finally, Vorn called for a vote on whether to maintain the current relationship with humanity or implement new oversight measures. The vote was closer than Jake would have liked, but the outcome favored maintaining the status quo. Earth had passed the test, barely. After the session, Jake walked through the station's market district. He needed to clear his head after the tense meeting. The district was busy with beings from dozens of species buying and selling goods from across the galaxy. He stopped at a stall run by a human merchant named Greg Parker. Greg sold Earth foods to alien customers curious about human cuisine. Business was good, Jake could see. A line of aliens waited to try various dishes. "Commander Morrison," Greg said with a smile, "what brings you to my humble stall?" "Just walking," Jake replied. "How is business?" "Better every month," Greg said. "Turns out aliens love human spicy foods. Something about the chemical compounds we use triggers pleasure responses in many species." Who knew? Jake watched as a Mantari customer tried hot sauce for the first time. The crystal being's entire body flashed through a rainbow of colors as the spice hit. Then it asked for more, apparently enjoying the sensation. 5 years ago, I could not have imagined this, Jake said. 5 years ago, I was a cargo pilot hauling supplies between colonies, Greg said. Now I own 3 restaurants on this station alone. The Commission changed everything for people like me. It almost never happened, Jake admitted. We came very close to a different outcome. Greg's expression became serious. I know, everyone knows what you did in that chamber. You gave us all a future. Do not ever doubt that what you did mattered. Jake thanked him and continued walking. He passed a school where young beings from multiple species learned together. He saw a Krathan child playing with a human child, both laughing at some shared joke. He saw an Aquilian and a human working together to repair a broken water fountain. These small moments of cooperation were worth more than any diplomatic treaty. They showed that different species could not just coexist but genuinely connect with each other. His communication device buzzed. It was Admiral Hayes with another update. Jake stepped into a quiet alcove to take the call. "Jake, I have news," Hayes said. Her face showed excitement. "The Council has approved Earth's proposal for the Academy. Construction begins in 6 months on a station dedicated to educating young beings from all member species." Jake felt genuine joy for the first time in weeks. "That is wonderful news. There is more," Hayes continued. "They want you to serve as the Academy's first director. They said if anyone understands how to bridge cultural divides, it is you." The offer surprised Jake. "I am not an educator. I am a soldier who became a diplomat by accident." "You're exactly what we need," Hayes argued. "You understand that education is not about teaching facts. It is about changing how people see each other. Will you accept?" Jake thought about it. The Commission work was important, but someone else could do it now. The systems were established. The protocols were working. But shaping the next generation, teaching young beings to see each other as individuals rather than stereotypes, that could change the galaxy forever. "I accept," Jake said. The next 6 months were busy with planning. Jake worked with educators from dozens of species to develop curriculum. They debated what subjects to teach, how to balance different cultural perspectives, and how to create an environment where young beings would feel safe exploring ideas. The Academy Station, named Unity in a rare moment of agreement among all Council species, was built in neutral space equidistant from major civilizations. It was smaller than Viridian Prime, but designed specifically for education. Classrooms, laboratories, living quarters, recreational facilities, all arranged to encourage interaction between species. Jake moved to Unity Station 3 months before the first students arrived. He spent that time training staff and finalizing details. The teaching positions attracted applications from thousands of beings across the galaxy. Jake personally interviewed candidates, looking for those who showed genuine curiosity about other species rather than just tolerance. One of his first hires was Kira. She would teach communication and cultural studies, helping young beings understand how different species express the same basic ideas in vastly different ways. "Are you sure about this?" Kira asked when Jake offered her the position. "I am young and relatively inexperienced." "You are perfect for it," Jake assured her. "You have compassion and curiosity. You see beings as individuals, not just as members of species. That is exactly what we need." The first class of students arrived on schedule, 200 young beings from 43 different species. They ranged in age from 12 to 16 in their respective species development, the period when minds were most open to new ideas. Jake stood at the entrance to welcome them. He watched as they arrived, some excited, others nervous, a few clearly homesick already. Parents from various species said goodbye to their children, entrusting them to this experimental program. A human girl named Sophie Brown was among the first to arrive. She looked around with wide eyes at all the alien beings surrounding her. "Is this your first time meeting other species?" Jake asked gently. Sophie nodded. "I grew up on New Portland Colony. We do not get many alien visitors there. I am a little scared." "That is natural," Jake said. "But remember, most of these other students are scared too. You are all in this together." He watched Sophie take a deep breath and approach a young Valaxian who looked equally nervous. Within minutes, they were talking and laughing about something. Fear turned to curiosity, turned to friendship in the space of a conversation. The first weeks were challenging. Young beings had to learn to accommodate each other's needs. Aquilians needed higher humidity than most species could tolerate. Chiron students communicated partly through pheromones that others could not detect. Human students were surprised by how many species found their constant smiling unsettling. But gradually the students adapted. They learned to recognize when behavior that seemed rude was just cultural difference. They discovered that beings from different species could share interests in art, sports, science, and dozens of other fields. Jake taught a course on galactic history, but not the sanitized version found in most textbooks. He taught the real history, including conflicts and mistakes. He told the students about the failed containment vote, about how fear nearly led to tragedy. "Why are you telling us this?" a young Krathan student asked. "It makes our species look bad." "Because it is true," Jake replied. "And because understanding how we almost failed helps us appreciate how we succeeded. Your ancestors were not evil. They were afraid. Fear makes good people do terrible things if we let it." He showed them the actual recordings from that session 5 years ago. The students watched in silence as species after species accused humanity of crimes. They saw Jake reveal himself and argue for cooperation. "That took courage," a human student said. "It took desperation," Jake corrected. "I was out of options." But yes, it required courage to stand there and trust that most beings are capable of changing their minds when given good reasons. The lessons resonated with the students. They began to see their own prejudices and assumptions. A Mentari student admitted she had thought all humans were aggressive until she met her human roommate. A human student realized he had assumed Chiron beings were mindless drones until he worked with one on a science project. Midway through the first academic year, Jake organized a project where 10 years had passed since Jake Morrison stood in the obsidian chamber and changed the course of galactic history. He was older now, his hair showing streaks of gray at the temples. But his eyes remained sharp and his commitment to the academy never wavered. Unity Station had grown from its initial 200 students to over 1,000. 5 graduating classes had gone out into the galaxy, carrying with them the values of cooperation and understanding. The academy's success had inspired similar institutions on other stations and homeworlds. Jake stood in his office reviewing applications for the next academic year. They received far more applications than they could accept. Every species wanted their children to experience what Unity offered. A knock on the door interrupted his work. He looked up to see a young woman he did not immediately recognize. Then his eyes widened in surprise. "Sophie?" he asked. "Sophie Brown." "Hello, Director Morrison," she said with a smile. "I hope you remember me. How could he forget?" Sophie had been one of the first students, nervous and scared on her arrival day. Now she stood before him as a confident young woman in her mid-20s. "Of course I remember," Jake said, gesturing for her to sit. "What brings you back to Unity?" "I want to teach here," Sophie said. "I just completed my degree in xenolinguistics. I speak 7 alien languages fluently. I want to help the next generation of students the way you helped me." Jake felt pride and satisfaction. "Tell me about your time since graduation." Sophie's story was remarkable. After leaving Unity, she had studied on 3 different worlds, living with alien families to fully immerse herself in their cultures. She had worked as a translator for the Commission, helping negotiate several important treaties. She had even spent a year on the Krathan homeworld, something few humans had ever done. Unity changed my life, Sophie said simply. Before coming here, I was afraid of anything different. After graduating, I could not get enough of learning about other species. You showed me that difference is not dangerous. It is fascinating. Jake hired her on the spot. Sophie would teach beginning xenolinguistics, helping new students overcome the language barriers that often created misunderstandings between species. That evening, Jake attended a reunion of Unity's first graduating class. 37 of the original 200 students had returned to the station for the event. They came from across the galaxy, taking time from busy careers and lives to reconnect with old friends. The reunion was held in the same common area where Jake had watched that first group of students bond 10 years ago. But now, instead of nervous children, the room held successful adults. A human and a Valaxian who had started a trading company together, a Krathan and an Aquilian who served as diplomatic partners, a Chiron scientist working with human researchers on advanced propulsion systems. Sophie found her old roommate, a Valaxian named Nexia. The two embraced warmly, their friendship clearly as strong as it had been a decade ago. I cannot believe it has been 10 years, Nexia said, her blue glow bright with happiness. I cannot believe how much has changed, Sophie replied. When we were students, human-alien cooperation was still new and uncertain. Now it is just normal life. Jake moved through the crowd, listening to conversations and catching up with former students. Each one had a story about how Unity had shaped their life. Each one spoke about friendships formed here that had lasted years in distance. A Krathan named Voreen approached Jake with his mate, a human woman named Claire Lopez. Director Morrison, I want to thank you personally. If not for Unity, Claire and I never would have met. Interspecies relationships were almost unheard of 10 years ago. How did your families react? Jake asked curiously. Voreen's forearms moved in a gesture that indicated complicated feelings. My father was Chancellor Voreen. He struggled with it at first. But Claire won him over with patience and respect for Krathan culture. Now they're close, Jake felt surprised. Chancellor Voreen has a human daughter-in-law? And 2 grandchildren who are half human, Claire added with a smile. The medical technology to make that possible was developed right here at Unity. Our children will grow up belonging to both species. They will be living symbols of what cooperation can achieve. The evening continued with speeches and reminiscences. Students shared stories about their time at Unity, about lessons learned and friendships formed. They talked about how the Academy had prepared them for lives in a diverse galaxy. Near the end of the night, Sophie stood to speak. 10 years ago, I arrived at Unity as a scared girl who had never met an alien. Director Morrison told me that we were all in this together. He was right. The beings I met here became my closest friends. They taught me that species does not matter nearly as much as character and kindness. She looked directly at Jake. You saved humanity once by revealing yourself in that chamber, but you saved us again by building this place, by teaching us that we are stronger together than apart, by showing us that the galaxy is not something to fear, but something to embrace. The room erupted in applause. Beings from multiple species showed their approval in various ways. Jake felt emotion welling up but controlled it. He had never been comfortable with praise. After the reunion ended, Jake walked the quiet corridors of Unity Station. It was late in the night cycle and most students were asleep in their quarters. He passed classrooms where tomorrow's lessons would teach young beings about each other's worlds and cultures. He stopped at a memorial wall that had been installed 5 years ago. It listed the names of those who had died in conflicts between species, including the 23 people killed by the Free Spacers. The wall reminded everyone at Unity why their work mattered. These deaths could not be undone, but future deaths could be prevented. Jake's communication device buzzed. It was Admiral Hayes, now promoted to Fleet Admiral and serving as Earth's primary representative to the Council. Jake, I have news, Hayes said, her face serious on the screen. Good news for a change. I could use some good news, Jake replied. The Council just voted unanimously to grant humanity full membership status, Hayes said. Not provisional membership like we have had for the past 10 years. Full membership with all rights and responsibilities. Jake felt something release in his chest that he had not realized he was holding. Full membership meant Earth was no longer on probation. It meant humans were finally accepted as equals in the galactic community. When does it take effect? Jake asked. Immediately, Hayes said. There will be a formal ceremony next month on Viridian Prime. The council wants you there. They say none of this would have happened without you. Jake thought about that first visit to Viridian Prime, disguised as an alien and expecting to die. He thought about standing in the obsidian chamber and gambling everything on the hope that beings could change their minds. I will be there, Jake said. The ceremony took place in the same obsidian chamber where Jake had revealed himself a decade ago. But the atmosphere was completely different now. Instead of anger and fear, the room was filled with celebration and hope. Representatives from all council species attended. Jake was surprised to see how many faces he recognized, and how many of them greeted him warmly. Even Ambassador Kellix, who had been one of humanity's harshest critics, approached him with respect. I was wrong about your species, Kellix said. His crystal body flashing with what Jake had learned was embarrassment. I let fear guide my judgment. I apologize for that. We all make mistakes, Jake said. What matters is that we learned from them. Chancellor Vorn, now retired but present as an honored guest, walked slowly to Jake. The old Krathen looked ancient now, his bronze scales dull with age. But his eyes were clear. I have grandchildren who are part human, Vorn said quietly. My son married a human woman he met at your academy. When I hold those children, I think about what I almost did. I think about how close I came to destroying the possibility of their existence. But you changed your mind, Jake said. That took courage. You gave me no choice, Vorn replied with a slight smile. You stood there and forced me to see humans as people rather than as threats. That moment changed everything. The formal ceremony began. Each council species stood and welcomed humanity as full members. They acknowledged Earth's contributions to galactic civilization and recognized the progress made in the past decade. When it was time for Earth's response, Admiral Hayes stood to speak. But she surprised everyone by calling Jake to join her. Commander Morrison should be the one to accept this honor, Hayes said. He earned it. Jake approached the center of the chamber, the same spot where he had revealed himself 10 years ago. He looked around at all the beings watching him, remembering how different this moment had almost been. 10 years ago, I stood here expecting to die, Jake began. I revealed myself because I wanted you to see me as a person, not as a statistic or a threat. I wanted you to understand that humans are not monsters or angels. We are just people trying to survive and thrive in this vast galaxy. He paused, gathering his thoughts. You could have killed me that day. You could have proceeded with containment and destroyed millions of innocent lives. But you chose differently. You chose to listen. You chose to give cooperation a chance. That choice saved my species. But it did more than that, Jake continued. It saved all of us from the tragedy of becoming enemies when we could have been friends. It opened the door to partnerships and fee,